of AI capabilities in recent years, in particular with machine learning and deep learning, as well as big data practices, the ethical concerns around the collection, use, and processing of big data and its implications on social justice and power also gain attraction. We definitely had to, and still have to, go through these debates and establish our principles and priorities in more detail. However, these initial debates over the last few years allowed us to develop and fund a number of think tanks, NGOs, research centers, and grassroots organizations. It was with this focus that we now have a number of guidelines and frameworks that can help us move forward to prototype and practice. It was the advocacy work of these organizations, investigative journalists, ethicists, that also led a number of companies, organizations, and even some countries to take a stand on the issue and publicly declare their ethical and responsible AI principles. So that chapter of defining is in a more mature state. What do we do to move forward to practice? Well, I think of this as a three-pronged approach with the involvement of all of us, either digitally literate citizens, consumers, and/or employees. Despite AI's ubiquity in society and decisions in important areas, both public and private, we have so far relied on journalists, advocates, and civil society to bring to surface when things went sideways. A move towards practice of ethical AI and responsible AI requires a few things. First is moving these guidelines and frameworks into regulations, as well as updating our current regulations to reflect the changes in technology. This process not only includes political deliberation of AI systems, establishment of independent bodies to regulate, but it also brings a democratic control and governance over the process. We have seen over and over again in certain sectors and industries where self-governance models are not enough by themselves, and in certain cases can lead to fatal results, despite the fact that all of them have great room for improvement and development. There is a reason why we have FAA to regulate aviation, or FDA to regulate pharmaceuticals, banking and securities regulators to regulate that sector, just to name a few. So another requirement is increased literacy of citizens, consumers, and employees on potential impacts of AI on themselves, on society, and on democracy, so that a more inclusive debate can be possible and these populations can demand change. To start with, this can be achieved by public messages, more news coverage, required AI and data ethics courses across multiple disciplines or degrees in colleges, and include them as part of civics classes in high schools. More awareness leads to more questioning and advocacy, and more demand for change. The other is the consumers and employees holding companies accountable. This can be employees challenging the culture, business models, incentive mechanisms, for example, or ensuring the full implementation of ethical frameworks into full product cycle on one end of the spectrum, to consumers triggering a review of practices through regulators, consumer bureaus, or creating reputational laws in case of misconduct on the other end. This obviously requires individuals being alert and caring enough to do this, but also having the right regulatory and enforcement mechanisms and tools in place. So a basic example, when you're professionally accredited to be, say, a clinician or lawyer or any profession, your misconduct brings restrictions on your future professional activities. This can be applied to AI vendors to restrict them from certain contracts or areas of activity. It can also mean that professional code of conduct can be used for data scientists, developers, behavior analysts, compliance and legal officers, just to name a few, within these companies, both to empower them and guide them. As I always say, ethics is not a plug and play. It requires intentional and deliberate practice in each step from all actors.